The 90s was a great time for RPGs. Some might even call it the Golden Age, and it was particularly good for Super Nintendo owners. Earthbound is a game that just sort of came out of nowhere. One day I just happened to notice that some people I knew were playing it and having a lot of fun, and I wanted in. I was already a fan of RPGs, and the fact that the game came with a guidebook included was very appealing. It's a game so good they gave it 2 title screens. Earthbound, or Mother 2 for you purists, was released in North America back in 1994 to very little fanfare. Earthbound was seen as a disappointment at the time, having sold roughly only half the amount in the US as its Japanese counterpart. The game had a heavy marketing campaign utilizing scratch and sniff ads with the phrase, "This game stinks," in an attempt to capitalize on the game's unique humor. I used to love to just pour through the guidebook. It's sort of set up like a travel guide, showing the places of interest in the various locations you visit. I always thought these little clay versions of the characters were cool. If they ever remake the game, I think it would be great if they digitized the clay models for the in-game graphics, kinda like Clay Fighter. Oh, and since the game came with its own guidebook, it came in an oversized box, similar to the Super Game Boy and Mario Paint boxes. Despite the fact that Earthbound is a sequel, it wasn't marketed as such because the game's predecessor, Mother, for the NES hadn't been released in the US at that point. In fact, an official localization of Mother wasn't released until 2015 on the Wii U's Virtual Console. The Mother series is the brainchild of Shigesato Itoi, who wrote all 3 games. Eschewing the standard fantasy tropes of most RPGs, Itoi created a story that takes place in modern times with locations, weapons, and enemies that you would see in everyday life. One of Earthbound's standout features is its cartoonish look, but don't let that turn you off. This game has a lot of personality and sits comfortably on the shelf next to other RPG greats such as Final Fantasy III and Chrono Trigger. The most graphically intensive part of the game is the unique moving backgrounds of the battle screen, which is light years beyond the stark black backgrounds of the original. You play as Ness, a kid with latent psychic powers. The game opens with a meteorite crash waking up the citizens of Onett. You set out to investigate and the adventure begins. As it turns out, the meteorite is actually a ship. A time traveler from the future gives you the lowdown. An evil being called Gygus is using mind control to take over the world, and you have to unite with 3 other special kids to defeat him. The game plays similarly to most RPGs, with a few interesting deviations. There are no random encounters. You can see your enemies on screen and choose to fight or avoid them, most of the time. One of the best aspects of this game is that once you've sufficiently leveled up, you will automatically win an encounter with a weaker enemy. This is an incredible time-saving feature that should be adopted by more RPGs. It makes grinding go by so much more quickly. You're all witnesses. The Onett Police Department just murdered a child. Unlike traditional RPGs, instead of acquiring money dropped by your enemies after battle, your father deposits funds into your bank account, which you must manually withdraw from an ATM in order to purchase goods. Earthbound is filled with many memorable and fun little moments. The personality of the game is a large part of what makes it so endearing all these years later. When it was localized for North America, however, some of the humor was altered and, in some cases, removed altogether. But I don't think the game suffered for it. I feel like this soundtrack is permanently etched into my brain. The soundtrack was composed by these guys, with assistance from these guys. I like how varied the songs are. Some are upbeat pop tunes. Some have a dark electronic feel. And some are just, well, bizarre. Yet somehow they mesh into a cohesive whole. In the years since its initial release, Earthbound has enjoyed a devout and ever-growing fan base. The game eventually became scarce and heavily sought after, with complete boxed versions of the game selling for hundreds of dollars online. After several years of fans petitioning Nintendo of America, Earthbound finally got a re-release on the Wii U's Virtual Console in 2013. And even the original Mother, retitled as Earthbound Beginnings, was given a release on the Virtual Console in 2015. And that's the story of Earthbound, one of my favorite games for the Super Nintendo. As always, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.